Hi, welcome to the House Judiciary Committee this Wednesday morning, May 6th, and we're continuing to look at S-193, specifically draft number 3.1. We didn't quite get through all the testimony yesterday. So we will hear from the Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs. Kim, thank you for your flexibility and being able to be over here.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For the record, Kim McManus, Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs. I heard something yesterday on NPR that I just had to mention to this group because of this bill. And I don't know if anyone else caught the story, but they were talking about how we all who sit in front of our screens and are doing all this brain work all day, like why we're exhausted at the end of the day. And I'm not going to remember the author of the book. I can forward it to you to anyone who's interested, but they were talking about how we need to think about ourselves as professional information athletes. Because, right? Like, I'm using this term all the time now. But it really, I was thinking about S-193 on my drive down yesterday, and then I heard this, and it really struck me because you all have done so much work on this, and like any other athlete, right, we reach our point where we are so done with whatever event it is we are doing. But what they were talking about in this piece was the need to really think of your brain in that athletic way and really give it time and space to rest and to recover, to be able to work at its most optimum self. And so when we reach these points where I can appreciate this committee being very tired of this bill, I think there's a number of committees who are tired of this bill. I'd say there's a number of presenters who have gotten a little exhausted, keeping an eye on 4 different rooms right now and their various discussions. But
I get the feeling this is therapy for you.
no, but I really, just wanted to appreciate the effort and time put into this. But really encouraging all of us, because I think we're all equally like, we just want to be done.
Well, yesterday afternoon when he called the break, thank God he did, because it was like I was drained. And then we went to a caucus meeting and it's like, I think I might have snoozed.
Yeah, because your brain's not getting any rest.
Yeah, it's like, it's mentally draining. And you want to do the right thing, obviously.
And you want to do the right thing. That's where, I was just thinking about this, wanted to share it with you of like that ability to reset and be able to refocus on this bill because you're so close to being done with it. And we just want to make sure the last parts are right as we move along.
Are you saying we're flagging? Is that what you're saying? A sprint, but not a marathon.
Yeah, I have a lot of sports analogies, and each one I was like, no. But if we go with marathon for a second, like, yeah, you guys have hit the 20-mile mark. Like you hit the wall, understandably, and again are trying so hard to do it right. And one, I just want to appreciate that. But two, we want to finish strong. And I think that's what everybody wants. And I know all the other committees want to send a ton of recommendations your way. That may be what.
From our friends in human services and price. It's not these are not in the sections that are our section. So that part's okay.
So I have a few thoughts about preparing yourself for the recommendations coming your way as well. So first, appreciations. So to get us towards that finish line, we do have a few comments and observations.
And really quickly, I said 3.1, it's actually 4.
4 point.
Right,
Yep.
right.
So on 4.1, a few comments, and a few of them are like very nitty gritty because I think we are near the end. So a few ors and ands that I just want to double check and make sure we're getting right. But the first one, Commissioner Hawes highlighted this yesterday. This was we paused on, we understand that you don't want to name the Secretary of Human Services as holding this, and that you very carefully are naming commissioners of the various departments. for areas of responsibility and the AHS medical director areas of responsibility. The completely taking out the Department of Corrections as a possible partner, we think is a mistake. And Commissioner Hawes spoke to that yesterday in the supervision piece. We do think there is a role there and a partnership that should be kept open and available. And we'll get to, again, preparing for the recommendations coming your way. One of the recommendations is, my understanding from House Corrections, is going to be that a feasibility plan is created by AHS to bring back to you all of what this forensic facility will flesh out and look like. And in their recommendations, they are completely wanting to sideline the Department of Corrections from anything to do with this. And we think that's a mistake, especially in the feasibility piece. We think we need to keep that as a factor, and most certainly for any release of supervision from the facility. We think DOC is important. We do not think DMH or the Department of Health is prepared without any significant statutory changes or resources to supervise individuals released from the facility. We do understand that folks being released would at that point have shown that they're no longer a substantial risk to others, but that prediction is based on them following the continuum of care and treatment and supervision outlined for them. So if that's not appropriately being done, we're going to up the risk factor for those persons. And we don't want them to have to go back into the facility. So we want to really make sure we get that supervision piece correctly. The other piece is if someone their risk does elevate, we do not think currently the Department of Mental Health, Department of Health is prepared to pull someone back into the forensic facility. And it gets very complicated if that person is shown signs of risk, but maybe hasn't committed a new crime. You're not going to be able to involve law enforcement in that movement of that person. And so we just want to think through those logistics there. And we think Department of Corrections, I don't know how much of a role, but there's a role there that I don't want to sideline.
So that is on page 5 and 6 specifically, and probably in the not guilt by reason of insanity as well. And it's line 20 is where I kind of have flagged where we could say supervision by the Commissioner of Department of Corrections and Commissioner of Mental Health, Department of Disabilities, Agents, Independent Living, or the Department of Health. So it's DOC and the same would probably be on page 6, line 5.
I think there might be one, it's another area, but I'll double check. But yeah, any of the release pieces, and yes, and mirrored in the NGRI population as well.
Yes, Barbara.
So can you say what you think DOC brings to the table and why? I mean, in some ways, I feel like they are going to need training in order to do it properly. But then why not build the system? I mean, it does seem like states are divided into the ones that have high DOC involvement and ones that have low involvement. And I'm not seeing community safety differences. So I guess I'm just wondering what it is that DOC has that you think can't be offered if we're building something anyway.
Well, what I would like to not pull them entirely out of the conversation. Okay, I think that's the important part, because I think, to your point, everyone is going to need a lot of training to shift into this mode. The Department of Mental Health, Department of Health, Dale less so. They have more structure around working with a population that has shown potential risk. So, but I don't know all their ins and outs. But I think everyone involved is going to require training. I think with Department of Corrections with their probation and parole officers. Commissioner spoke to a few of the programs that they already work together on. And then I would imagine those individuals do have additional training when they work in the different spheres together around domestic violence and others, that they have additional training on de-escalating folks. And I know that Department of Mental Health does too, but I just don't want to carve them out too early, especially if a feasibility plan is going to be created, at least have the options there of who would need more training or less, like what makes sense.
So I actually felt more comfortable carving them out because it seemed like they are partnering with mental health and jail. So it's not like, oh, no, you can't partner with them anymore. Like it felt like have those departments kind of steer the boat of like, okay, we need DOC involved. And to the commissioner of Dale's point of bringing the health department in because we separate out addiction programs from mental health services. She was the one who suggested add the health department in. And so in some ways, having it stay in the therapeutic umbrella. But of course, I understand we need to keep the community and the staff safe. And so having them look through the lens of what's going to work. Because again, I am not convinced from what I've read that corrections is making it better in the states that are doing that in terms of the outcomes.
So one tangible example I could give is if part of the supervision and plan is that somebody has an electronic monitor. I don't believe the Department of Mental Health or the Department of Health has any that they could enter into a contract with somebody to do that, but DOC has that capability. So when we say add them, we're not saying that that doesn't make them the point person. But what I'm concerned about is if that they're not added, that then, and again, I have to admit, I'm projecting to the language that I believe you're going to be receiving, where it is very adamant that they're not involved at all. And so those partnerships that Commissioner Hall spoke about yesterday, I'm concerned that there's going to be put a very solid wall that they're not able to continue to do that. And that's what our concern is. And I don't know if that's accurate, but it's a concern.
And have you testified in those committees at all?
I'll be in corrections this afternoon. Yeah. Because
So just to back up a little bit as well. And I think we have, and I hope that corrections and particularly human services does not lose sight of this fact as well before you go on. Because is that these individuals are in DOC right now custody, being held without bail for years until there's a due process hearing to get them out. This is an exit strategy that allows them to get the treatment and then have a place outside of a carceral setting to address this. So DOC has to be part of this. They are part of it now. And we need to make sure on the clinical side, it is not DOC and it is not carceral. But as far as the having the security component of there, I think, yeah, I'm going to push back as far as human services and corrections if they say DOC has no role in this, because I think that that's not realistic with where we are now. We have to minimize the role and have it only for security. And I think at one point, I mean, in fact, I think it needs to be worked on a little bit, and we will see all this in the next couple of days. We'll see what the other committees have come up with, but they have a legislative intent where they have Department of Correction may provide security, although it's a little too limited. It says they may provide security around the outside perimeter of a forensic facility if it's co-located on the grounds of a correctional facility. That's a little too limiting because I think they do have a role in the supervision, but it can't be the primary role. Like, it's got to be a shared role. And I think, but backing up, I mean, I still think people are missing the fact that this is a heck of a lot better route that we're trying to map out here than what is currently in place for these individuals. I will be saying that to my friends in human services probably just later this morning, but back to you. So, apologize, but I just,
And we support what you just said. And I think in a really important,
and I do understand Barbara's concerns as well, but I think we're taking care of those, so,
One thought on that too.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that, because I hear what you're saying, that these are individuals who are in DOC custody currently and for languishing in DOC custody. And so what this plan is this plan proposes something better. But they're currently in that situation because we don't have anything else,
Right.
right?
Right,
So
we want to
I don't
reiterate
necessarily want to compare to what we're doing now, because what we're doing now isn't like on anyone's list of what's the right thing to do or the best thing to do. But I agree. I hear that there is a
So
role.
maybe I'm projecting that I believe Human Services wants to take IDD folks and maybe even developmentally disability folks out of this, which means they would still languish. And so, and absolutely the therapeutic component of it, the DOC, it can't be in DOC general population, you know, it's got to be a separate facility, et cetera. I think takes care of a lot of those issues, but I'm concerned that we're going to see a plan where it's going to leave certain individuals potentially languishing. But that's a separate issue than where DOC is involved in this. But I'm just flagging that a couple things that we need to deal with our sister and brother committees. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and I think it's that tricky place of there's aspirational goals and there's acceptable outcomes. And listening to House Healthcare yesterday, there was incredibly thoughtful, aspirational wants that went well beyond like what any forensic facility program is doing in the country. And if we had a blank piece of paper and all the money in the world, it would be a wonderful thing to do. But we don't have that. And the reason why we supported this bill was because we had thought of something that could be doable in the very near future. And it's why we narrowed the population so very much to get started, and not to say that it was the end goal, that it was the best ever, but to start addressing the issue. And I fully appreciate, and this has been said in many rooms, just because we don't want to just do whatever. And we appreciate that. We do need to do something. And so where everyone's sort of acceptable line is, and that we can always keep building towards the aspirational goals, we would encourage you to really search hard for where acceptable is right now with our current circumstance. And that doesn't mean any of those aspirational pieces can't come later. I know I'm a little tight on time, and again, I don't want to wear down the professional information athletes too much with a lot of rhetoric. So some specifics just wanted to highlight in the bill. We support on page 2 the removal the Dale community from there. We think it's appropriate. The revisions that were reviewed yesterday of that filtering out of that population occurs later if we go through and find that they're not restorable and they're appropriate for Dale. That works for us. So thank you. We appreciate that. On page 3, and I imagine Eric's going to go through and scrub as the references have changed.
Yeah.
But on line 1, it says remanded to the secretary.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I got it.
All right. Page 8. This one on page 8, to remember what all my things were. Oh, line 13. This is the court will, so right above, the court shall review an order of continued treatment issued pursuant to subdivision B, Romanet 2, every 6 months. And then it says, end upon a petition filed by a person subject to the order, and then it gives the limits of when a person can petition. I believe that's meant to be an or. It either happens every 6 months or the person petitions and then they have their limits.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, that's pretty big. Yeah.
Okay, great. Page 9, again, this is probably on your radar. It mentions the clinical facility director down on page 7. Sorry, line 17, page 9. I believe you'd want that to be the AHS medical director. Page 12, this is our section 2 dismissal of misdemeanors. On line 18, the language is the court shall continue the hearing, and we've changed all the other ones to may continue.
Yeah, got it.
For rates.
As well.
Page 16, again, this is for the state's attorney petitioning the court for an NGRI commitment, the 6 months, 3 years, 5 years. And then there on page 16, there's then again, upon certification at any time by the Secretary of Human Services, or sorry, by the medical director, that the person no longer shows a qualifying condition. So I believe that in between 3 and 4 on line 4, that should be an or, not an and.
Say that, where's that again? I'll just,
Page 16, line 4.
okay, that's an or.
Well, because it was an or and then that got crossed out and then it's an and, but I think it should be an or. Because it's the time periods or when the medical director is like, there's no longer a condition.
Yeah. Or an ands and may and shall.
You know, they will trip us up. The little words get us. Oh, again, this will be in cleanup, I'm sure, but page 22, section 4A has it. Not quite sure what's.
What line are you looking at?
Sorry, line 20. That it's continued as the definitions section, but that's the section beforehand. And it's the reports here. And I know this back end is all going to probably change
Right.
significantly, so we'll just leave that until you have those revisions. And there'll be a lot of restructuring in the back, depending on what you all ultimately decide. There's some references that need to be made again with the Secretary and Medical Director. Okay, so I think I've made my point and I don't want to belabor it, that when you receive the recommendations from the other committees, there's 2 things. One, I think there's a lot of aspirational hopes in there that just may not be realistic right now. And that is going to be a tough balancing act for all of you. 2, much to your frustration, I don't feel like all the committees read thoroughly the work that you've done. Because a number of recommendations, you know, they're like, there need to be clear time limits and there needs to, and I was like, it's all in here. So I'll just warn you, I think you have done that work, the procedural work, and understandably, committees really wanted to stay in their lane, but I think it's hard to understand your lane without seeing the whole.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone understood the whole when they were coming up with their recommendations. So just a word of caution. Again, especially if you decide to add a feasibility plan into this bill, we highly encourage you that Department of Corrections not be sidelined. Within that feasibility plan, I would think you would want, if you're if we're going down that route, be able to present a few options to you with the different costs associated with those options. And if DOC is completely out of the picture, my concern is the options available are going to be so expensive and so not possible anytime soon. And that is a great concern of ours. And lastly, just so that you're not surprised next year, we advocated for this very small population, just individuals accused of life offenses, because we thought we had a possibility of this happening in the near future. If we have a feasibility plan and that feasibility plan comes back with a larger, more robust program, do not be surprised that we will say there are many people who are outside of the life offenses who should be eligible for that program. And I think you all recognize that. I've heard many conversations about the need for community competency restoration, whether you're in a facility or outside a facility, and that's absolutely where we want to get to someday. But the more individuals that we can have access competency restoration, the better. So I just don't want to surprise anyone. We locked into this small population to get something started. But if we are going to broaden the plan, then we will absolutely ask to broaden who's eligible for it.
Yes. Representative.
So I'm wondering, I understand that we may get very aspirational plans, but I also understand that Colorado, Washington State, Pennsylvania all have models, both outpatient and inpatient models, that are considered cost-effective, realistic. And I'm wondering if I know you've done research on other states, and I'm wondering if you've looked at some of the other state models and if there are any in particular that you think should be referenced in.
I would not feel comfortable saying that. I have to admit, I was focused much more on the procedural part. And I did some reading on outcomes, but I would not feel
Just
confident
There you
about
were.
that. But I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I wouldn't highlight. I personally would not highlight a particular program.
But it does seem realistic to look to.
Absolutely. Some states are doing,
Right.
all the states are doing something. Some of them are doing it better, and absolutely there are models to look at.
And if we also brought in the national NCSC, I forget what they stand for, but basically they're a court resource that has done a lot of education and webinars on these programs, as well as actually we heard about Yale, but also NCSL, and we would be silly to not learn from the rest of the nation.
Okay.
I think bottom line to this whole thing is we've been dealing with this for many, many years. We're the only state in the nation, if I'm not confused. We don't have this type of facility. We need to start somewhere. This is leaps and bounds ahead of taking care of the community and also the person that is in custody, whatever the proper word is. And I think everybody, or I think most people from what I'm hearing, is trying very hard and diligent to go and start somewhere. And there's no reason why we can't tweak this to make this even better for all the citizens of Vermont. And I think that's the important thing here. I'm finally seeing after 8 years that we're finally getting some positive movement on this. And I very much appreciate it. And I think there's many different levels. And I think we brought in some really knowledgeable people here that aren't going to let this fail and not afraid to make adjustments and tweaks and all work together. And God knows in government, we need more entities working together for the right cause. And if I just sounded like a politician, I apologize.
Thank you very much. I know that you have, you have to run to.
Thank you.
Ken.
Yes.
We'll probably have you back soon, in the next couple of days to talk about the other parts.
Curious
Yeah.
of that of when everything
Yeah,
merges.
we're keeping possession, so it has to pass through here. And so we'll hear from folks on those other parts, especially to the extent that they're inconsistent with what we put together in the first four
Yes.
sections.
Great. Well, thank you and good luck.
All right, so we're adjourned until tomorrow at 9, but don't go off like quite yet. So tomorrow I had scheduled, but I'm going to move the relinquishment. The H606 is presumably going to come back to us, but it's been delayed a little bit downstairs. And I think we need to continue work on looking at the parts that we, from human services and corrections. So we'll probably find witnesses